My shift at the diner was finally over. The place was dead quiet and I just wanted to get home. I wiped down the last table, the vinyl still warm from some guy's coffee cup. My hands ached. I was stacking the chairs when I heard it. Two loud cracks from the alley behind the dumpsters. It didn't sound like a car backfire. I froze. Then I heard a low groan, a sound of pure pain. My feet moved before my brain could catch up. I pushed the back door open just a crack, and I saw him. Silas Croft, a local politician I knew from the news, standing over a body. The body was my brother, Jonah. He was lying on the wet asphalt, his hoodie dark with more than just rain. Silas looked right at me through the open door. His face was calm, totally blank. Then he adjusted his glasses and gave me this slow, cold nod. He knew I'd seen everything. And I remembered a rule I'd heard once. A rule from a different world. If a civilian sees a boss commit violence, they get claimed or they get silenced. I was not claimed. I backed up, my heart hammering against my ribs. Silas turned to the two huge guys with him. He pointed right at me. He didn't even raise his voice. He just said, "Her, now." That's when I ran. I crashed through the kitchen, past the shouting cooks, and burst out into the alley. Brakes screamed. A black car slid to a stop, blocking the way out. A man stepped out. Alessio Conti. I knew who he was. Everyone did. The two gunmen from the diner spun around. Their guns came up. I ducked behind a dumpster. Two quick cracks, then two more. I heard bodies hit the ground. Silence. I pushed myself up to run, but Alessio was already there, standing between me and the street. He wasn't even breathing hard. He just looked from my face to the dead men behind him. He saw a witness. I knew exactly what that meant. He grabbed my arm. His grip was absolute. He pulled me toward his car, opened the passenger door, and leaned in close. I could smell soap and gunpowder. "They saw you," he said. His voice was low, just a fact. "Silas's men are dead. His next order will be for you." I told him to let me go. My voice sounded weak. He didn't answer. He just looked over my head back toward the diner. I saw the decision click into place behind his eyes. Then he guided me into the seat and shut the door. The lock clicked down. He walked around the front of the car, a shadow under the buzzing alley light. I didn't understand. The rest made sense. What he'd decided behind his eyes didn't. My wrists still ached from his grip. The passenger seat was cold. The only light came from a flickering neon sign across the street. Alessio was a dark shape next to me, cleaning a cut on his knuckles with an old cloth. The car smelled like motor oil. I couldn't stop shaking. He didn't look at me when he spoke. "They know your face now, Elena Vance." Hearing my full name in his mouth felt like a violation. He knew things he shouldn't know. I stayed quiet. He tossed the cloth onto the dashboard. "You have no one to call," he said. It wasn't a question. It was him stating my reality. My brother Jonah was gone because of my world, not his. The guilt burned in my throat. I found my voice. "You checked." Finally, he turned his head. The light caught the old scar on his jaw. He looked at me for a second too long. I didn't know what it meant. Then he gave a single, slow nod. The same cold nod he must have given 100 times before giving an order. But this time, it felt different. It felt like an answer to a question I hadn't asked. He shifted back toward the wheel, breaking the look. The space in the car seemed to shrink. I could feel the warmth of him from across the seat. I wanted to reach out and I wanted to run, both at once. We sat there in a heavy silence. The engine hummed low beneath it. He rested his injured hand on the steering wheel, his fingers loose. He didn't start the car. He just waited. Like he'd forgotten what came next. But I knew what came next. His decision for me refused to stay put in my head. Real quick, if you're here for the Mafia boss who patches up your wounds before he locks you in a safe house, hit subscribe. Trust me, it gets more complicated. The sting of the antiseptic on my knuckles was still there. The SUV smelled like new leather, thick and fake. Streetlights started to blur past my window. Alessio drove. His profile was sharp against the city lights. He had a gun on his hip. He had blood on his hands. I watched his left hand on the wheel. A single vein stood out along the back of it. I didn't know what that meant. My mind kept replaying Jonah's face. He was dead because of me. My breath hitched, a small trap sound. I knew what Silas would do to me next. I couldn't go where Alessio was taking me. I had to get out now. I lunged across the console. My fingers scrambled for the gun at his hip. I grabbed the cold handle and pulled. Alessio's reaction was instant. His right hand clamped over mine, pinning it and the gun against his side. His grip was crushing. I cried out. With a brutal wrench, he peeled my fingers back and took the weapon. "The doors are child-locked," he said, his voice flat. He tossed the gun onto the dash. The glass is bulletproof. Sit back. I didn't listen. Panic took over. I threw myself at the door, clawing at the handle. Nothing worked. I hit the glass with the heel of my hand. It didn't even shake. I turned and kicked at the window behind me. A hard sob tore from my chest. Alessio reached over in one smooth motion. He grabbed the front of my shirt and yanked me back into my seat. He held me there, his fist tight in the fabric. His face was close to mine. I could see the faint, tired lines at the corners of his eyes. Enough, he said. The word was quiet and final. He let me go. I slumped back, my chest heaving. He was sacrificing his night for me, but the string attached was my freedom. He looked straight ahead at the road. What he decided behind his eyes was clear now. He wasn't asking. He shifted in his seat and I saw it. A dark, wet stain spreading high on the shoulder of his suit jacket. It was fresh. Everything else I could deal with. The fresh blood on his shoulder was different. The ghost of his grip still ached on my arm. My boots met the safe house floor. It was polished concrete, cold and sterile. He guided me to a long leather sofa in the middle of a vast white room. Alessio walked to a steel cabinet. His movements were slow. He came back with a white box marked with a red cross. He placed it on the low glass table between us. He looked at my left hand on my knee. Your palm, he said. The cut from the diner glass was a thin red line. I'd forgotten about it. I can do it myself, I said. My voice was flat. He didn't answer. He just sat on the table in front of me. He opened the kit and took out an alcohol wipe. He tore the foil packet with his teeth. He held out his hand, palm up, waiting for mine. I didn't move. He waited. His dark eyes were fixed on my face. Then I saw his hand tremble. It was just a slight shake. He lowered it to his thigh and pressed it flat against his suit pants. The tremor stopped. He looked away for a second at the blank wall. He took a slow breath in through his nose. Jonah was a good man, he said. He said it to the wall. He didn't look at me. He didn't deserve that end. The words were quiet. They weren't planned. I knew that. He hadn't meant to say them. He turned back to me. His face was closed again. He held out his hand once more. This time I gave him mine. The antiseptic was cold. He cleaned the cut with a methodical gentleness. His focus was absolute. He applied a thin bandage. His thumb smoothed the edges down. His touch was warm. He didn't let go of my hand right away. We were close enough that I could see the faint lines at the corners of his eyes. I could feel the heat from his body. Neither of us moved. He finally released my hand. He gathered the used wrappers. You're safe here, he said. He stood up and walked back to the cabinet. He put the kit away. I stared at the neat white bandage on my palm. It was a small kindness. It felt like a chain. He had cleaned a wound he never caused. He had spoken a truth that cost him nothing. He had held my hand without taking it. The air in the room felt thick and still. He stood with his back to me, his shoulders set. I knew he could feel me watching him. We both held the silence. It was full of every word we would not say. What he would do if I reached for his hand again. I wasn't going to like the answer. The sharp scent of antiseptic still clung to my skin. I watched the moon trace a path across the dusty floorboards from the windowsill. Alessio stood across the room, his back to me. He spoke low into a phone, his free hand rubbing the back of his neck. The fabric of his dark shirt was torn at the shoulder. The stain there was darker than the rest, a wet patch that had seeped through. I remembered the fresh blood spreading on his shoulder in the car. He had been shot. He had been bleeding this whole time. The antiseptic smell was still on my skin. I watched the moon slide across the floor. Alessio stood across the room, his back to me, talking low on the phone. His dark shirt was torn at the shoulder. The stain there was darker, wet. He'd been shot. He'd been bleeding this whole time. He hadn't chosen me. Something else had. There was a difference. The thought was cold and quiet. Alessio ended his call and turned. His face was pale under the harsh light. He looked at me for a second too long. I didn't know what it meant. Then he walked to a cabinet by the sink. He pulled out a metal box. I need to check the perimeter, he said. His voice was flat. He opened the box. Inside were more guns. He picked one and checked the magazine. His movements were smooth, but his breath hitched when he lifted his bad arm. He saw me watching. Jonah's death won't be for nothing. That's the report I just gave. The words were a statement, not comfort. They were the strings. A sudden crunch of gravel sounded outside. Alessio went still. He moved to the window beside me, staying in the shadow. He looked out. His whole body tightened. They're here, he whispered. Croft's men, 2 cars. My stomach dropped. They'd found us too fast. The cage was now a target. He turned from the window. His eyes were wide, the brown of them almost black. For a flicker, I saw the man who'd bandaged my hand. then it was gone. There's a bathroom down the hall, no window, get in it, lock the door, do not come out until I say. He picked up a second gun from the box. He held it out to me, grip first. His hand was steady. Do you know how to use this? I stared at it. My heart hammered against my ribs. I thought of Jonah. I thought of the blood on Alessio's shoulder. I reached out and took the cold, heavy weight of it. My throat felt seared from holding my breath. The only light in the living room came from a thin blue bar on the silent TV. I checked the front door first. The deadbolt was locked. I pressed my ear to the wood. I heard only the hum of the fridge. My hands were shaking. I shoved them into my pockets and turned to face the empty room. It was a staged space. Too clean. A stiff sofa. 2 armchairs. Bare table. I started with the bookshelf. It held only fake books and a layer of dust. My fingertips left trails in the gray powder. I moved to the sofa. I lifted each cushion, felt along the seams. The fabric was rough and scratchy. Under the third cushion, my fingers brushed against cold, hard plastic. I pulled out a slim tablet. I dropped to my knees and put it on the coffee table. The screen lit up when I tapped it. It asked for a password. I tried a few obvious guesses. Nothing worked. I almost put it back, then I remembered the way Alessio had handled his phone earlier. He used a long, complex number. I looked at the tablet's login screen again. A tiny company logo was in the corner, the same symbol I'd seen on his car key fob. I entered the numbers from the fob, the ones I'd glimpsed when he tossed it on the diner counter. The screen unlocked. I was in. My blood went cold. I was now holding something that belonged to Alessio Conti. Files were organized into folders, simple labels. One was called Briggs. I opened it without breathing. Inside were pictures of Jonah. Recent ones, him leaving his apartment, getting coffee, looking tired and normal and utterly unaware. A document listed his schedule, his habits, his frequent contacts. This was surveillance. Alessio had been watching my brother long before tonight. He'd known Jonah was my only weak point. My protection came at Jonah's expense. That was the unspoken string. I heard a floorboard creak in the hallway outside the door. My lungs still burned from the panicked breaths I'd taken. I got up and crossed to the window. A sharp, cold draft cut through the gap. Alessio stood by the other window. His back was to me. The tablet with his secrets felt heavy in my hands. I stared at the rigid line of his shoulders. He was a silhouette against the city lights. His world had almost killed me once. It would try again. The Contis control the docks, he said. He didn't turn around. His voice was flat. A simple fact. It was also a huge confession. It meant he wasn't just some soldier. He was the heir. His hand flexed at his side. Then his fingers went perfectly still. It looked like a man stopping himself from making a fist. He finally looked at me. His usual mask was gone. I saw only tired honesty. Silas wants those docks. He wants you because you saw his man fail. I remembered why I'd flinched when he said that name. On the tablet, I'd seen a photo. Jonah, my brother, entering a building owned by Silas Croft. Alessio had been watching him for weeks. He took one step toward me, then he stopped. The space between us was less than 3 feet. I could see the faint lines at the corners of his eyes. The air felt thick. I almost reached out. I think he almost spoke. Neither of us moved. I let out a shaky breath. I looked down at my own hands. I broke the spell. Why had my brother been entering a building owned by Silas Croft? I'd been wrong to ignore it this long. The pressure behind my eyes was a dull, cold ache. I heard Alessio's key turn in the lock. The door swung open, bringing in a gust of air that smelled like wet wool and something else, something metallic. He stepped inside and leaned back against the door to close it. His left hand was pressed tight to his side. His dark suit jacket was darker there, soaked through. He looked right at me in the dim light. I didn't ask about the injury. I walked to the coffee table and picked up the tablet. I held it out. The blue screen light lit up the space between us. I know who you are, I said. My voice was steady. I know you're Alessio Conti. I know you've been watching Jonah. He looked from the tablet to my face. His expression didn't change, but he took it from my hand. His fingers were ice cold. You watched the news, he said. It wasn't a question. He put the tablet down on the small table by the door. Then he moved past me into the living room. His movements were careful, stiff. He didn't even glance at the ledger still lying open on the couch. Knowing my name doesn't change your situation, Alina. He said my name like it was a fact he owned. He lowered himself into an armchair. His breath caught just once. It changes everything, I said. I stayed standing. You're not just some soldier. You're the heir. This is your war. He watched me. His face was pale under the harsh ceiling light. A muscle in his neck jumped. He was silent for too long, and I saw it in his eyes. It wasn't anger. It was something heavier. A calculation. "Knowing this makes you a greater liability," he said. His voice was low, almost soft, "or a more useful asset." He leaned his head back against the chair. He looked tired in a way that went beyond the wound in his side. "Silas Croft knows you were with me at the diner. His men are combing the streets. They found Jonah's last location." The choice hung in the air between us. I could be a problem he erased, or a tool he used. My safety had strings, and he was holding all of them. I didn't back away. The taste in my mouth was pure adrenaline, sharp and coppery. The hangar air smelled like jet fuel and cold rain. I stepped onto the concrete floor. Alessio was a dark shape ahead of me. He turned. His hand shot out. His fingers closed around my arm just above the elbow. His grip was like iron. He pulled me toward the steep stairs of the waiting private jet. The jet's engines whined, a high sound that hurt my ears. I dug my heels into the rough tarmac. I yanked my arm back with everything I had. He stopped. He looked at me. His eyes were hard, but his mouth was a tight line. "I'm not getting on that plane," I said. My voice shook, but the words were clear. He moved to grab me again. I stepped back. The rain misted my face. "You don't get it. He'll find me. He steals medicine from hospitals." Alessio went very, very still. I watched the information land in his expression. "He sells it to people who can't afford it. Cops and judges look the other way for a cut." I was pleading now. I needed him to see. "A loose end with a face is a threat. He'll chase me to another country." His face lost all its color. For a second, he looked almost sick. Then the resolve came back. It was colder, more final than before. He shoved me toward the stairs. I stumbled on the first step. He pushed me up the rest. His hand on my back wasn't gentle. He followed me into the small cabin and slammed the door shut. The lock engaged with a heavy thud. The sound sealed us in together. He stood with his back to the door for a moment. He ran a hand over his mouth. His knuckles were scraped raw, and I understood then. He was sacrificing his own plan just to keep me close. The price was that I saw the fear in him, too. His phone rang right then. He answered it with a sharp word. I watched his face. His eyes cut to me. And something in them broke open. He listened for a long minute, then he said, "Jonah Briggs is missing." He said my brother's name like he knew it. They took him right off the street. They knew exactly where he would be. He ended the call. The truth was a cold stone in my stomach. My brother had been entering a building owned by Silas Croft. He wasn't a customer. He was a journalist digging into stolen pharmaceuticals. We were both targets now. My tongue still had that gritty, chemical taste. Hangar dust and fear. The armored car's interior smelled like new leather and citrus polish. A scent so clean it felt like a lie. I slumped in the seat, my whole body a dull weight. I stared at the dark partition dividing us from the driver. The only sound was the hum of the tires on wet pavement. I finally looked at Alessio, sitting beside me. He was staring at his own hands. The dashboard light washed over them. I saw a thick, roped scar across the back of his right hand. It ran from his thumb to his wrist. The skin there was shiny and pale. His fingers were straight and quiet on his thigh. "Where did you get that?" I asked. My voice was rough from not using it. He turned his hand over, like he was seeing it for the first time. He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. "My father," he said finally. The words were flat. Final. A lesson about reaching for what wasn't mine. He didn't look at me. He flexed the hand slowly. The scar tightened like a strap. Our shoulders were close on the wide seat. The heat from his arm reached my skin. I didn't move away. I thought about my brother Jonah, somewhere in the dark. I thought about the clean smell of the car hiding the blood. I leaned an inch closer. My arm almost touched his. Alessio went very still. He didn't pull back. He didn't close the distance either. I held my breath in the quiet. Then I turned to my own window. I watched the blurred streetlights streak by. The silence between us was a new kind of quiet. It felt heavy and full. That question, why he hadn't pulled away, sat there between us like something unfinished. The safe house door hung splintered on its hinges. The sharp, coppery scent of blood in the stale air told me everything. Alessio pushed me behind him without a word. His gun was already in his hand as he stepped inside. He moved with a terrible silence that made my own breathing sound loud. The living room was destroyed. A wooden chair was shattered against the wall. A table lamp lay broken on the floor, its shade crushed. My eyes found a dark, rust-colored stain soaking into the beige rug near the couch. I covered my mouth with my hand. I felt a scream stuck in my throat. I forced my feet to move. I needed to see to find something of Jonah. Alessio watched the windows, his back to me as I searched. I dropped to my knees and felt under the overturned couch. My fingers brushed against soft leather. I pulled out Jonah's small notebook. My hands shook as I flipped it open. His tight, familiar handwriting listed medicine names and shipment dates, and the letters SC repeated over and over. He was so close. A fierce pride cut through my fear, sharp and painful. Alessio's voice was a low whisper behind me. "We're not alone." He was at the window, peering through a slit in the blinds. The low rumble of a car engine idled somewhere close outside. He killed the single remaining light with a click. The room plunged into a deep, waiting dark. I crouched beside the couch, the notebook pressed to my chest. Alessio moved to my side, his shoulder almost touching mine. He was listening. I could see the faint outline of his profile against the window's gray light. His head was tilted, his breathing controlled and shallow. The way he positioned himself between me and the door wasn't just tactical. It was a choice. A floorboard creaked under his weight as he shifted. He spoke, his voice so quiet I felt the words more than heard them. Jonah was brave. He knew the risks. He said my brother's name not like a fact in a file, but with a rough respect. It was an answer, and it made my eyes burn. He reached over and took the notebook from my stiff hands. "I need this to find him." It wasn't a request. The car outside revved its engine once. Alessio's free hand closed around my wrist. His grip was firm, not to hurt, but to pull me up. "Now," he said. We moved toward the back of the house, away from the door, away from the light, and into the deeper dark. The taste of blood, sharp and coppery, still coated the back of my dry throat. I slumped against the doorframe of Jonah's ransacked apartment, my shoulders aching. Alessio was already moving past me. His eyes scanned the wreckage. Then his whole body went still. He turned his head toward the apartment door. I heard it then, the heavy thud of boots coming fast up the stairwell. He put a single finger to his lips. His dark eyes were wide and fixed on mine. Then he shoved me hard toward the bedroom. "Move," he said, his voice a rough whisper. I stumbled into the room just as the front door exploded inward. Wood splintered with a loud crack. Men shouted from the living room. Alessio, his gun already drawn, pushed me down behind the bed. He pressed his back flat against the wall beside the doorframe. His breathing was silent, but his chest moved fast. A man in a dark jacket burst into the bedroom. Alessio fired. The sound was deafening in the small room. The man fell back without a sound. More shouts came from the hall. I saw the small, encrypted drive on the floor by the desk leg. I scrambled toward it on my hands and knees. My fingers closed over the cold metal casing. A framed photo of me and Jonah fell from the desk, and the glass shattered. The noise seemed to fill the whole world. Alessio grabbed my arm and pulled me to the window. He kicked at the old fire escape grate. The rusted metal gave way with a shriek. "Go," he said. He helped me climb out first onto the iron landing. The cold air hit my face. He looked back toward the bedroom door. His hand went to his side, then came away dark and wet. He didn't make a sound. He just climbed out after me and started down the ladder, putting himself between me and the open window above. The sharp scent of his blood was still in my throat as we climbed the metal stairs to our new hideout. It was a drafty warehouse loft. The only light came from a single, dust-caked skylight far above. I made him sit on a stack of wooden pallets. The Mafia boss, Alessio Conti, was pale. He held his side with one hand. I tore his shirt open with both of mine. The bullet wound was a dark, wet hole below his ribs. My hands shook as I poured the last of the whiskey from his flask over it. He made a sharp, pained sound. I looked up at his face. His eyes were usually so hard. Now they looked unfocused, but they were fixed on me. He watched my face as I pressed a wad of cloth from my own shirt against the wound. His breathing was fast. I had to lean over him to keep the pressure on. The only sounds were our breathing and a distant drip of water. "My sister," he said suddenly. His voice was thick. "She had steady hands like yours." He went very still after he said it. The words just hung there in the cold air. I remembered him putting himself between me and the door, taking the bullet meant for my back. My own hands paused for just a second against his hot skin. Then I kept working, winding a strip of fabric around his torso to hold the pad in place. His head tilted back against the wood. His lips parted like he might say something else. I leaned in closer, my face near his. I could feel the warmth coming from his skin. My knuckles brushed his bare chest as I tied the bandage tight. He didn't look away from me. The weight of everything he hadn't said pressed down on the small space between us. I didn't move back. Everything else I could figure out. Why he'd mentioned his sister just then? That was different. By the time the gray dawn light seeped through the grimy windows, I could feel the cold air on the dried salt tracks on my own cheeks. Alessio was slumped against the brick wall. He was pale. His breathing was a rough sound in the quiet room. I took the encrypted drive from my pocket and plugged it into his laptop. The screen lit up with a single password field. I shook his shoulder gently. His eyes opened, but they were unfocused. "Jonah loved old boxing matches," Alessio whispered. His voice was thick. "Ali, try Ali." I typed it in. The screen flashed red. Access denied. Alessio cursed weakly and tried to push himself up. A pained sound escaped his lips and he settled back. I was frustrated. My own brother and I couldn't guess his password. Then I remembered his stupid, loud laugh when our old dog would chase its tail. I typed the dog's name. The screen changed. A list of files appeared. I let out a small breath. I scrolled quickly. Shipping manifests, bank records, then I found it. An address for a remote farmhouse, listed as a safe location. My relief was short-lived. The next folder held surveillance photos. Pictures of me leaving my apartment. Pictures of me at the diner. Jonah knew the danger I was in. He had been watching me. I looked from the screen to Alessio's pale face. His eyes were closed again. I felt a fiercely protective guilt. Had my brother's knowledge gotten him taken? Were we walking into his trap or ours? Alessio's hand, resting on his knee, twitched. His fingers curled slowly into a loose fist. He was looking at the bandage on his side, the one I had made. He didn't thank me. He just said, "We go to the farmhouse." It wasn't a suggestion. It was an order that cost him something to give. I understood the sacrifice. His protection came with one string, my complete compliance. I started to say we should wait for him to be stronger. Then I heard it. The low growl of car engines, more than one, moving slowly on the gravel road outside. I went very still. Alessio's head turned toward the sound. His whole body tightened. The adrenaline left a cold, metallic taste in my throat long after the van stopped. I stood on the farmhouse porch. The weathered boards groaned under my weight as I scanned the empty fields. Inside, Alessio was leaning heavily against a dusty kitchen table. He'd taken his suit jacket off. The white shirt underneath was stained dark red at his side. I plugged Jonah's drive into my laptop on the table. "The files point here," I said. "But there's more. Shipping manifests. Guest lists for a charity gala." Alessio watched me work. His face was tight with pain, but his eyes tracked my hands. I pulled up a chemical analysis report. "This is from Jonah's notes. It's not just drugs. It's cut with something toxic. Fentanyl, maybe something worse." I looked at him. "This shipment will kill people." "It's not a shipment," Alessio said. His voice was a rough scrape. "It's a delivery. Silas Croft is using the gala's catering trucks. High-profile cover. No one checks." He pushed off the table and winced. A single drop of sweat traced a line from his temple down his neck. "Knowing changes nothing." "We have to stop it," I said. The words felt stupid as I said them. "We." He let out a short breath. "You stop it, you break omerta. You speak to the cops, you testify. You paint a target on everyone you love." He looked right at me. "Starting with your brother, that starts a war." I was angry. My face felt hot. "So we do nothing? Let that poison hit the streets?" I thought of Jonah, brave and missing because he tried. Alessio moved closer. He didn't touch me. He just stood there, a wall of hurt and resolve. "I told you about my sister," he said. "She asked me for a normal life. I gave it to her by staying away." He looked at the drive. "Your brother gave you this, a choice, to run with it or to burn it, to be safe." His meaning was clear. The safety had strings. The cost was silence. The rest made sense. What my brother had risked to put on that drive, that didn't. That cold stone in my gut from Alessio's words just sat there. I found myself in the farmhouse kitchen, staring at a single candle flickering by the sink. The light jumped over the chipped enamel. Alessio was leaning against the counter across the room, looking out the black window. His shoulders were a hard line under his torn shirt. The only sound was a faucet dripping into the sink. "You're hiding," I said. My voice was flat. He didn't turn. "Behind your code. It's easier than doing what's right." Finally, he moved. He pushed off the counter and faced me. In the candlelight, I saw the exhaustion carved around his eyes. It was deep, tired. He ran a hand over his mouth, a slow drag of his fingers. "You think this is about easy," he said. His voice was low, stripped. "If I break omerta, if I move against Silas, It's a death sentence for my mother, my sister, her kids. He stopped. His next words were so quiet I almost missed them. For you, they'd erase every trace of my defiance. Starting with the things I care for. He took one step toward me. He didn't close the gap. I could see a faint tremor in the hand at his side. I could smell old wood smoke on his clothes. My heart beat hard against my ribs. I wanted to reach out. My feet stayed stuck to the linoleum. He looked at me for a long moment. His eyes held mine, and I finally saw it. The answer. My brother had been watching me because he was afraid for me. He knew the kind of men who were circling. And he knew I'd caught the eye of the most dangerous one. Alessio's world didn't have innocent bystanders. It ate them. He drew a slow breath like he was going to speak. Then he let it out. He gave a small, almost invisible shake of his head. The moment hung there, full of everything we couldn't say. The pressure of his words was still a cold stone in my stomach. My knuckles ached from gripping the steering wheel of the stolen coupe as we got closer to the gala's lights. The car was silent except for the engine. It smelled like lemon polish. I just watched the road. Alessio sat beside me. He was checking the gun in his lap. Slow, deliberate. His suit jacket was open. I could see the white bandage under his shirt. I saw the strain in the careful way he held himself. He was trying not to press a hand to his side. "We don't have tickets," I said. My voice was too loud. "We have these." His voice was flat. He didn't look up. He placed 2 engraved invitations on the dash. The names were a couple with a yacht dock nearby. Jonah's files said they were out of the country. "We walk in like we own the place. You stay close. And if they recognize you?" "They won't." He finally looked at me. His eyes were tired but clear. "The people who would are dead, or they work for me." I believed him. I made myself think of the photos on the drive, the kids in the hospital, what my brother had risked. It wasn't just evidence, it was a body count. I had to make it matter. We were 1 block away. The lights from the white tent reflected on the dark water. I swallowed. "Thank you," I said, "for choosing to go." Alessio went very still. He didn't answer for a long time. He just looked at me. His hand, which had been adjusting his cuff, stopped. He looked away first, out the window. His voice dropped so low I almost didn't hear it. "I'm not doing this for them." Then he turned back. He reached across the space between us. He didn't touch my hand. He cupped my face instead. His palm was warm and rough. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. "I'm doing it for you," he said. The words were simple. They felt like a door slamming shut behind me. There was no going back. I didn't know what to say. I put my hand over his. I held it there for a second. Then I had to let go to turn the wheel. We pulled into the valet line. Men in black coats swarmed the cars ahead. I handed Alessio the invitation. Our fingers brushed. He got out first, moving with a stiff grace. He came around and opened my door. He offered me his arm. I took it. I felt the solid strength of him through his jacket. I also felt the slight tremor of effort. We walked toward the blinding light and the music and the enemy. That question, why his hand had trembled, sat there like something unfinished. The warmth of his palm against my cheek lingered like a brand, long after we'd left the car. Back in the sterile quiet of his apartment, I pressed my own cool hand to my face. I stared at the single, forgotten wine glass glowing on the granite counter. The warmth from his hand on my cheek was still there, like a mark I couldn't wash off. I stood in his apartment, my own cool palm pressed to my face. I stared at a wine glass left on the counter. It felt like a whole other life. Alessio walked into the living room. He got on his phone. He spoke fast in Italian. He stood by the window, but he wasn't looking out. His free hand was clenched tight against his leg. I saw the folder on the table, the thick one, the dossier. He was planning something careful, something slow. Jonah didn't have time for slow. I needed to see that file. I moved toward the kitchen like I was getting water. My heart was pounding. I was desperate. I picked up a fruit bowl like I was studying it. I heard him say 2 words. "Domani, tomorrow. Sicuro, safe." That was too long. I turned and walked straight to the coffee table. I didn't look at him. I picked up the heavy folder. The cover was plain gray cardboard. I opened it. The first page was a photo, a surveillance shot of Jonah outside his office. My throat closed. Alessio stopped talking. I felt him look at me. It was like a physical weight. I closed the folder and held it tight to my chest. "I need to see this," I said. My voice was way too loud. "You don't need to see that," Alessio said. He'd ended the call. He took a step toward me. His face was blank. Shut down. "It's operational details. It will only frighten you." He held out his hand. It wasn't a request. I took a step back toward the hallway. I remembered the fire escape door. from when we'd rushed in earlier. "Give it to me, Alina." There was a new tightness in his voice. It was the sound of trust snapping. I turned and I ran. The hallway was short and dark. My hand found the cold metal bar of the service door. I shoved it open. The night air hit me. Damp, it smelled like city traffic. I stumbled onto the fire escape. The folder was slippery in my sweaty hands. I didn't look back. I just started down the clanging metal stairs as fast as I could go. My knuckles ached. Raw from forcing the fire escape window open on the yacht. I stood frozen behind a stack of ropes. The boat was huge, white and gold. Music and laughter floated down from above, where the gala was happening. The deck under my feet was slick. The stolen folder was tucked inside my jacket. It pressed against my ribs hard. I needed to find Jonah. Before Silas Croft's men found me, I moved along the shadowed side of the deck. My shoes were silent on the wet wood. A crew member walked past the far end. He didn't see me. I saw stairs going down, a lower level. The light there was a dim, green glow. I went down, the air changed. It smelled like stale water and bleach. This was the crew area. Then I heard a voice around the corner. Calm, cultured. It was Silas Croft. "She's here on the boat," he was saying. My security just confirmed a breach on the lower deck. He sounded annoyed, not even angry. "Find her before she finds the brother. Contain her. I want her alive." A cold shock went through me. They knew I was here, already. Then I heard a second voice answer him. Weak, strained, it was Jonah. "You won't get away with this," Jonah said. His words were slurred. Croft answered. "I already have. Your sister just made it easier." I heard a soft thud, like a body sliding down a wall. My guilt turned into a hard, sharp stone in my chest. I had led them right to him. I stepped out. I turned the corner. Jonah was slumped against a metal door. A dark bruise spread across his temple. Silas Croft stood over him. The man with the trim gray hair. He looked at me. He adjusted his expensive glasses. He didn't seem surprised. "Alina Vance," Croft said. "You saved us the trouble." He took a step toward me. I stepped back. My hand went to the folder inside my jacket. He saw the movement. His eyes went to the shape of it. "Ah," he said, "you have Alessio's file. How loyal of you to deliver it." He held out his hand. His fingers were clean, manicured. "Give it to me, then you can see to your brother." I looked at Jonah. His eyes were half closed. I looked back at Croft's outstretched hand. I thought of Alessio's hands. Scarred, capable of violence. But when he'd offered me his arm earlier, that same hand had trembled. It was the hand of a man holding back his whole world. For one person, I did not give Croft the dossier. I took another step back. I got ready to run or to scream. I didn't know which would be worse. The cold dread from that moment on the boat had settled in. A permanent ache behind my ribs. Now I was in a different alley. A fine mist clung to the bricks. I pressed my back against the damp wall. The loading dock door behind me was cold through my dress. I could still hear shouted orders. Silas's men, 2 streets over. I had the encrypted drive in my hand. I thought I could feel it humming. A shadow moved across the alley. It detached itself from the deeper dark. Alessio moved without a sound. He was just there. His suit jacket was gone. His white shirt was darkened in patches. I didn't know if it was rain or something else. He stopped, an arm's length away from me. He didn't reach for his gun. He just looked at me. His eyes went over my face, then my hands. He was checking for injuries. His own breathing was quiet. Measured. In the narrow, dark space between us. "You said you would wait." His voice was low. It had no anger in it. That was worse. "I know what you said," I said. My own voice sounded thin. "But Jonah is on that yacht. I saw the shipping manifest. You were going to send me away." He was quiet for a long moment. He looked down at the wet asphalt between us. When he looked back up, the usual control was gone. He just looked tired. "I was," he said. The admission was simple. It felt like a door opening a crack. He took half a step forward. The space between us shrank. I could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes. I could smell the rain on his skin. He didn't touch me. His hands stayed at his sides. But his nearness was a solid, warm thing in the cold alley. I didn't step back. "If you walk into that gala alone," he said, "it is a cage. You understand that? My protection ends at the door." "I know," I whispered. He nodded once. A muscle in his neck moved. He was holding something back. He was letting me see him hold it back. Then he turned his head. He looked toward the distant music from the gala. It was a concession. It was him handing me the choice, knowing what it cost him. My knuckles still ached from his grip. I blinked under the dizzying chandelier light at the center of the gala stage. The heat from it prickled against my bare shoulders. The crowd was a wall of expensive fabric and judgmental stares. I saw Silas Croft standing by the mayor's table. His mouth was a thin line of triumph. I stepped forward onto the polished stage. My heels clicked on the hard marble. The sound echoed in the sudden quiet. I raised the leather ledger high above my head. The worn brown cover was playing against the glittering room. I opened the book with both hands. My voice shook at first, but I made it grow loud. "This is a record of payments," I said. I pointed a finger straight at Silas. His polished smile vanished. "Payments for political favors and police blind eyes, all rooted through a fake charity." I could see Alessio then. He was a dark shape near the service doors, watching. A single muscle in his temple moved. It was the only sign of the storm inside him. His world had almost killed me once. It would try again. I turned back to the pages. I read the entries aloud for everyone to hear. I named the dates and the amounts. I read the coded descriptions of the shipments. Then I said the final name on the latest page. All signed for and received by Silas Croft. I thrust the open pages toward the nearest table. A woman in a blue dress leaned in. Her eyes widened as she scanned the lines. The crowd gasped as one. A low murmur of shock rolled through the hall. Silas's face went white with pure rage. He didn't look at the crowd. He looked only at me. His hand went to his signet ring. He twisted it hard. I stood firm and waited. I had given them everything. I knew the cost would come for me later. The mayor stood up slowly from his seat. He took the ledger from the woman's hands. He studied it with a grave expression. The room held its breath. My hands still trembled with the phantom weight of the ledger. I pushed through the heavy glass door to the balcony. The cold night air hit me, carrying the sweet scent of jasmine climbing the stone railing. The noise from the grand hall was a muffled roar of outrage and confusion. I leaned against the cold stone, trying to steady my breathing. The door behind me opened with a sharp sound. I turned and saw Alessio shouldering his way through. His dark eyes scanned the shadowed balcony and found me. He moved toward me, his steps quick and sure on the flagstones. He didn't speak at first. He reached me and his hands came up, not to grab me but to frame my face. His palms were warm against my chilled skin. He looked me over, his eyes checking for any sign I was hurt. I saw the tightness around his mouth, the only sign of the strain he was under. "You were reckless," he said, his voice low, "and you were perfect." The shouts from inside grew louder, more organized. He dropped his hands from my face. "We have about 90 seconds before they secure the exits." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he reached inside his suit jacket. I thought he would pull out his own weapon. Instead, he produced a smaller, black pistol. He held it out to me, grip first. The metal caught the dim light from the windows. "Take it," he said. There was no question in his voice. This was not a loan. It was a transfer. I stared at the gun. I thought of all the times I had been afraid of his. I thought of Jonah, somewhere because of this world. My throat felt tight. I reached out and took the weapon. The weight was real and final in my hand. He didn't smile, but something in his posture eased. A small release of tension in his shoulders. He had just given me a piece of his power. He had given me the means to protect myself, even from him. I slid the gun into the hidden pocket of my dress. It pulled the fabric down with a new heaviness. "Now we run," he said. He offered me his hand, not to pull me, but to join. I placed my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, firm and sure. We stood there for one more second on the quiet balcony, with chaos building behind us and the night ahead. The gun was a cold, heavy secret against my back. We pushed through a service door into a long hall that smelled like bleach and sirens. Alessio was ahead of me, one hand pressed to his bandaged side. And then I saw him. Jonah was slumped against a stack of linen carts. His face was white. His dress pants were soaked with blood above the knee. Seeing him like that, it just knocked the wind right out of me. I ran and dropped to my knees next to him. I didn't think. I just grabbed the hem of my dress and ripped it. The sound was loud in the hallway. I wrapped the strip of fabric tight above the wound, my hands shaking. Jonah's eyes fluttered open. He looked at me, confused. "Lee. We have to move, now." That was Alessio. His voice was flat and urgent behind me. I looked up. Two of Silas's men had just appeared at the far end of the hall. Big guys in dark suits. One of them pointed right at us. Alessio didn't hesitate. He hauled Jonah up by the arm, taking most of his weight against his own injured side. I saw his face tighten with the strain, but he didn't make a sound. "The kitchen exit," he yelled. We stumbled forward. The polished floor was slick under my heels. I could hear the men behind us start to run. Alessio kicked open a heavy swinging door and shoved us through into sudden, total darkness. We were in the kitchen. It was a cavern of cold metal, smelling like old grease. Red exit signs glowed at the far end. The sirens were right outside now. Police sirens. For 1 second, I let myself hope. We could get to the car. We could get Jonah to a hospital. Then the kitchen service entrance banged open. Silas's personal guys filled the doorway, blocking our path to the parking lot. They were just dark shapes against the flashing blue and red lights outside. Alessio stopped dead. He pushed Jonah behind a wide stainless steel counter. Then he looked at me. His eyes went to a different exit sign on the wall to our left, one that led to an alley, not the lot. It was a worse way out, a more dangerous one. He gave me one short, sharp nod. It was the only way. He'd handed me the gun for a reason, so I'd be ready for a moment exactly like this, so I could help him clear a path. The weight of it in my hand felt suddenly very, very real. The gun in my hand felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Alessio's nod wasn't a question. It was an order, one I had to follow. I turned my back on him and Jonah. That was the sacrifice. My life for theirs. The strings were pulled tight now. I walked out of the kitchen and into the emptying ballroom. The place was a ghost town. All I felt was this sudden, desperate need for a sign. I needed to know what this was going to cost me. I scanned the chaotic dock outside the big windows. I was looking for any movement from that sealed-up yacht. The cost of my betrayal. It wasn't going away. That cold, vindictive triumph I'd felt earlier, it was gone. Now there was just a hollow ache right under my ribs. The only warmth on the whole rain-slicked pier came from a single, swaying dock light. Its yellow glow fought against the mist. I watched Alessio stand silhouetted against it. He pressed the heel of his hand to a cut on his forehead, right above his eyebrow. The rain had washed most of the blood away, leaving just a thin, pink trail down his temple. I fished a clean handkerchief from my coat pocket. I held it out to him without saying a word. His hand came away from his brow, and he took it. That's when I saw it. His fingers trembled against the white cotton, just a small, quick shake. I had never seen any part of him tremble before. He looked at the cloth, not at me. His voice was low and rough. I thought I'd find him dead in that cabin. He meant Jonah. He just stared at the faint stain his fingers left on the fabric. We stood there in the quiet after his confession. The only sounds were the water lapping against the pilings and the sirens fading away in the distance. Our shoulders were almost touching in that narrow circle of light. I didn't step away. I kept my eyes on the dark water, feeling the heat of his arm right next to mine. I wondered what we were supposed to do now. The mission was over. Silas was in handcuffs. Jonah was safe with the paramedics. We had nothing left to run from, and nowhere left to go. Alessio finally looked at me. The cut on his brow was still seeping a little. "You have a choice," he said. His voice was steady now. The tremor was gone from his hands. "You can walk away from all of this tonight. I will make sure of it." He paused. I saw his throat move as he swallowed. "Or you can stay, not as a civilian I protect. As a partner, it would mean my world becomes yours, completely." He didn't touch me. He just waited, his dark eyes holding mine. The offer hung between us, heavy and real. It was the cost and the reward all in one sentence. I felt the pull of it, deep and terrifying, but I put it away. I got on with things, because what Alina had whispered under her breath when she thought I wasn't listening, it refused to stay put. Real quick, if you're here for the final choice, hit subscribe. The last piece of this story changes everything. So, what do you do when the only person who's ever seen the real you offers you their entire world? But you've just heard a secret that could shatter it. Would you walk away for your own safety, or step into the dark, knowing you might be the one holding a match? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you need to know how this ends, make sure you're subscribed. The finale is next.